Regardless of this fact, they have one of the most damaging bites in the game. Africa, the game's hardcore server. On top of the potentially lethal heat and disease debuffs, many of the most powerful builds in the game are playable only on the Africa server.
The way they go just like right at the trachea.
Everyone knows the
so
big
cool.
names.
Like
Elephants are the biggest, cheetahs are the fastest, cobras are the most venomous, etc. However, one of the builds that frequently gets overlooked is the hippopotamus. Even though none of their stats are the best in a single category, there are things that they do better than anything else. So today I'm going to give an overview of the hippopotamus's stats and abilities, talk about its good and bad matchups, and where I'd rate it in the overall tier list. So you probably noticed that the hippo stats are, in a word, phenomenal. They have one of the highest HP levels of any land build, second only to the elephant. Normally, builds with...
So the answer is yes. What? I mean, I feel like you need a couple weaknesses here and there to be like a realistic build.
One unusually high base stat tend to have major shortcomings in other areas, but the hippo simply doesn't. While its intelligence is only average, all the rest of their stats far outclass most other African builds. They have great damage, high defense, and even have great stealth for a build in such a high weight class. But perhaps the most surprising is their mobility level, which relates to how their abilities let them engage in physics engine exploits like I mentioned earlier. So in addition to having relatively high run speed on land, hippos are also unbelievably...
Hippos shouldn't be able to run. I feel like that's just unfair. A running hippo? That's like a runaway train.
Mobile in the water. Now, normally when designing your character to be fast in the water, you spec into traits like, you know,
stubby legs.
Things like a streamlined body, fins, flukes, webbed feet, all these things strictly buff water speed, and usually are the go-to for players trying to take their character to new depths in the aquatic meta. The hippo player base decided to do exactly none of that. Instead,
that is the opposite of webbed feet.
Aquatic meta.
Just stumps with a bunch of nails on them.
Player base decided to do exactly none of that, instead dumping most of their evolution points into pure bulk and muscle. As a result, hippos are so dense that, unlike most animals, they do not float. This lets them be one of the only builds that can actually use the run movement option underwater with any success.
They could have been denser,
so yeah,
I guess.
Hippos, despite not actually being...
But I didn't know that. I didn't know that they could just walk underwater. That's pretty cool.
To swim grants them near total immunity to slash and bite type damage.
Near
since
total?
Claws and teeth simply are too short to pierce their skin. This lets them...
So if they just bite you on the like on the neck like the other things, you don't even care? Are you kidding me?
Shrug off the vast majority of standard attacks in the African...
I mean, yeah, you can shrug off that. The lioness didn't really commit to that attack. It was just like, aw, man.
In meta, and is also crucial for letting them survive attacks even from groups of enemies, which is normal because hippos have spec'd into the hairless trait in order to minimize mobility debuffs in the water.
Does hair really like tangibly slow you down in water? I never really thought about it like that. Actually, maybe I did. Is that why they wear like wetsuits and swimsuits? Because of these bad boys.
To sweat that grants them UV resistance, and as an added bonus, grants them resistance. Hippos have spec'd into sweat that grants them UV resistance, and as an added bonus, grants them resistance to infection.
What? This isn't fair. I want to be a hippo. SPF 90 sweat that's also antibacterial.
Another hugely beneficial trait to have when you spend most of your time in unclean water, potentially with open wounds. The only downside is that while active, it gives the hippo players a reddish tint, temporarily lowering their stealth level.
Aw, that's so sad. Hippos are now ugly because they're so strong.
However, regardless of this fact, they have one of the most damaging bites in the game. On top
we already saw that in the beginning, right? I didn't process that. Well, I wasn't expecting that when we were talking about like it being strictly herbivore, and all it does is eat grass.
They're strictly herbivorous and can't gain any XP
This is really
from
cool.
meat.
I know, right?
However, regardless of this fact, they have one of the most damaging bites in the game. On top of the sheer force of the bite itself, which is around a ton by the way, their tusks deal massive damage.
If I had that big of a mouth, I feel like I could break a watermelon too, right? Because I know for a fact that I can bite through the shell of a watermelon, and if I mean, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. No. This is a baby hippo. Why'd you bite it?
Force of the bite itself, which is around a ton by the way. Their tusks deal massive damage to anything they puncture.
Are we sure that's a hippo bite wound?
Offer another important benefit, intimidation, So the most effective intimidation techniques are the ones that can be quickly switched on and off. So the most...
Consider me intimidated. What the hell is that?
For another important benefit, intimidation. So the most effective intimidation
do it with my
techniques
fingers.
are the ones that can be quickly switched on and off. A hippo,
Yep, there's the
they can
intimidation.
crank up the intimidation to 100 just by
0?
opening their mouths.
100.
A hippo player with intimidation
Yeah, those
tactics is
tusks
one of
are
the
kinda
most
scary.
intimidating things in the entire game. On top of this, the hippo's own attacks can one-shot any of those predators.
And baby hippos use crocodiles as chew toys when they're teething. What's more, baby hippos use crocodiles as chew toys when they're teething. What's more, the crocodiles just let them do it, because otherwise the adult hippos will tear them apart.
As for bad matchups, any builds that focus on stab-type weaponry can definitely give a hippo a hard time.
Oh, really?
In particular, elephants and rhinos both have long enough horns or tusks to pierce the hippo's thick skin and deal critical damage to a hippo foolish enough to challenge them.
Oh, the lion's teeth aren't long enough, so it just goes through the skin. That's cool, but that's all it is. All it does is pierce the thick skin. Oh, I thought it just couldn't. They just couldn't bite him. I see.
Fortunately, the rhino's low intelligence makes it highly susceptible to intimidate abilities, so that matchup is by no means unwinnable.
Feels bad, man.
Elephants, though, they'll walk straight through a...
They're so strong, but they're not smart enough to know it.
is how they fare against humans. And in this regard, they've got one of the best records of all.
What?
Obviously, they still lose to the highly advanced equipment that humans have recently unlocked. But aside from that, humans don't have any way to combat them. As a result, hippos have the highest KD ratio versus humans in the entire game. It's tough to argue that they're anything but S tier. They easily control any rivers or lakes that they're in. A few of them have recently broken into the South American meta.
Oh, was that Pablo Escobar thing?
In the 1980s, drug kingpin Pablo Escobar imported 4 hippos for his personal zoo. After Escobar's empire collapsed, the hippos escaped and began to multiply.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria, and I don't know the rest.
Now, hippos have one of the lower spawn rates in the...
What do you mean lower? They're faster than humans. 243 days? Look at that, 15 months, 16 months. I mean, I guess they're not lions. Imagine a cheetah actually trying to hunt a hippo. What are you doing? Just don't even try it. More Tier Zoo, I want more Tier Zoo. Click, 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 click for Tier Zoo.